What's up? Welcome back. Welcome back to a new video. This is gonna be my studio, and by studio I mean my room. So I bought some good crispy stuff. Whatever this is. Basically I bought lighting. We're gonna set it up and see how it goes, and then we're gonna go to the video. Basically look like this. A little bit of tape. And we take it off, slap it on there. I don't know, it should work. I hope. Moment of truth. Yo, let's go. Same thing with the second one. I mistakenly brought also a black one. We also have some plants, which are fake. I don't have to water them because I only had a plant like once. And my friend bought it extra for my birthday, and she said that it's pretty easy. I only have to water it once a month. I did. It died after 2. We also have this fancy stuff. And some flowers, like this. I think it should work. Alright, so welcome back to another video. We're going to talk about something which I have been thinking about lately, and it's probably a thing which I have changed and worked on a lot throughout med school. And every single one of us at one point has been really perfectionist about something. It could be family, relationship, a job, a project, some new skateboard that you bought, and so on and so on. The problem is that it doesn't have to be perfect. And back in the past, I undermined many things and I thought that everything has to be on point. What I realized is that perfection doesn't exist. Chasing perfection and trying to get 100% of something or put 100% into something doesn't really also seem to work. So at one point, I stopped chasing perfection because in order to do something perfect, you have to do it completely messy at first, and perfection can be only achieved later. And I think even then, even when you're a master at your craft, you can't do every single thing perfectly 100% every single time. And I think that's a problem, which is something I really realized in surgery, is that for some cases, perfect is not equal perfect in other cases. In some cases, it just has to work. In some sense, the suture has to hold. It can look pretty messy and it can be pretty tough to do, but at the end of the day, if it holds, it's not perfect, but it gets the job done. So what I realized throughout time is that perfection is more sort of an ideal or an expectation of yourself from something, which is perfectly fine. But when you project yourself onto something like ideal, in sort of a sense that, for example, men do when they see women, and they project their ideal onto them, and that's not who they really are, and that's not what you're really doing here, and that's not really what's going to turn out. And eventually, at the end of the day, an ideal or perfection is great, but it usually happens at the end, because the whole journey is usually a mess and you only get there at the finish line, and sometimes it's a perfection, but you can see it only as a perfection in hindsight, because when you get there to the finish line, you appreciate the perfection or the path you went through in the past as a whole. And that's the ideal. The whole is the ideal, not the every single small details, because you probably went through ups and downs the whole time. And now you're here thinking to yourself, man, that was pretty messy, but it's like perfect. It's the way I wanted it, and so on. Because an ideal is usually something great to have and to chase, but sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it's just an ideal. Sometimes it's just an ideal and it doesn't happen. And so what usually happens is that in the journey, you don't think about anything in between. So you're just going straight out. So imagine you're driving a car, you're going straight towards something, and then it starts raining. So that was the plan. Your ideal plan was you go to the highway and but it started raining. That also kind of passed. And then it's kind of like muddy at this point, and then you still go on, and at one point you get a flat tire. Now, what many people think is that once you get a flat tire, it's over, it's not perfect anymore. But that's the point. You have to get somewhere. You still have to go on. And what people do is they usually get off the car and slash the other 3 tires, and now you're not there. Basically what I learned is, because there's no perfection, the only way to really do this is to slap on a spare tire, which may look like with Soviet rims, and the car is a little bit tilted, and you get a little bit bumpy down the road, but at the end of the day, you get to the finish line. It does not matter. Getting somewhere with a flat tire with Soviet rims is a lot better than not getting there at all. I mean, sure, okay, if you get there amazingly and you do it flawlessly and you drive the car and there's no rain and then you don't get a flat tire, then it's perfect. Would flawless not be amazing? Do we not like flawless? Yes. However, life doesn't really work that way. So you basically get a kick and a punch in the stomach every here and there, and then you kind of go on, and then you sort of figure things out, and then you're happy about it. But it still works. You still get to the finish line. Now, you might not get to the finish line as perfect as 1 in a million people, but you still got there. This is a great example because if you're dieting, what the internet usually says, you need a perfect diet, for an example, for 16 weeks, a really strict diet. I don't know. I don't know. It's too much. And because I'm also dieting myself right now, you can see that here and there, you're usually gonna screw up. You're usually going to take a amazing cookie, or maybe even like 5, but that's like 1 day out of 7. And you still did the other days too. So you might as well continue doing that. That what happens is because if you only screw up, because if you only mess up 1 time out of many, it's not really that important. People forget the big picture, is because you're still going to lose weight even if you ate a cookie, or for that matter, half a cake on 1 day. Well, it depends how caloric it is, but you get the point. But by the end of the day, you still lost weight, you did not give up, you still didn't lose the job, you still finished the workout, and so on and so on. What I also learned is that 1 is better than 0. And as much as weird as it sounds, I'm trying to implement that in my life, is that figuring out what to do and doing at least something bigger than net 0 is a lot better than doing net 0. So even if you will read a 1 page a day is a lot better than doing nothing. It also, of course, depends on the goals. Do you want to reach something bigger and something higher? Then you're probably going to need to read like 50 pages a day. There are going to be days where you can't get more than 5 or 10 pages. For an example, in university, in med school, there were days where I found topics incredibly interesting. For example, I don't know, neurosurgery, orthopedics, the surgical ones, and I absolutely plowed through the book in 3 days, and I had the whole orthopedics done in basically 2 to 3 days. But on the other hand, you have stuff like rheumatology. No. And then I took like a week to get and understand just basically how rheumatology works. At the end of the day, what does all of this talk basically means? It basically means that some setbacks aren't really that important, and the most important thing is that you just have to finish the race and go through with the car, because maybe next time you can buy a normal car and a better car with better tires, and then you don't have to slap on a tire with blue Soviet rims on it. But at the end of the day, if that blue Soviet rim gets the job done, then you're pretty much fine. Then you finish the race. Does it make the difference? It probably does. But did it get the job done? It did. So there's the right thing to do and the perfect thing to do, and then there's the thing that works. And I pretty much choose the thing that works 90% of the time. Okay, that's basically it. Hope you liked it. If you did, you know what to do. Smash the buttons or whatever the YouTubers say. And if you want to hear more medicine related topics, for example, med school or whatever, then let me know.